Because everybody else might be following all these little news stories or gossip columns and ha 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 he this person, this happened to this person, ha ha ha, the president, former president got arrested. Like paying attention to all these crazy things in your own personal life, you're not taking advantage in your moments. How crazy would David have looked if he was he and ha 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 and spending all his time talking about everybody else and what they ain't do or what they did do and being so caught up in distractions, trying to force other people to do this and believe what I believe, and you ain't even taking advantage of your moments. A leader can recognize that. A true leader who's following the Lord can recognize when the crowd in the herd is going away from the will of God. And maybe a true leader might ask a couple of questions and say, yo, I'm not running just because y'all running. I'm not scared just because y'all scared. I don't mean to offend you if I'm not afraid of him the way y'all afraid of him. And that's what people will do. People will want you to be scared the same way they scared. People want you to react how they're reacting. And I'm like, all right, bro, look, we in the same time, but we ain't in the same moment. Because you not understanding the power of this moment, and I am. And that's what I love about David. Let's get back into it. Y'all like, go back to the Bible, fam. Verse 19. And these men gave David the same reply. They said, yes, that is the reward for killing him. I love this about David in verse 26. David is like, hold on, say that again. You ever need somebody to repeat it again? Like, can you run that by me one more time? What will a man get for killing him and ending his defiance of Israel? Like, say it again, bro. Verse 28. But when David's oldest brother Eliab heard David talking to the men, he was angry. What are you doing around here anyway? He demanded. What about those few sheep you're supposed to be taking care of? Woo! I know about your pride and deceit. You just want to see the battle. Ooh, his brother was mad. His brother was mad because David was recognizing his moment. And at the same time that David was recognizing his moment, his brother was in fear. You feel me? What's up, Aisha? Thank you so much. I appreciate you watching. Think about the contrast of this. Like, we're both here in this same moment, seeing this same giant. You're afraid of him, and you want me to be afraid. And so it makes you angry that I'm not afraid the way that you are, the way you want me to be. And so David is looking at his older brother looking at him like, hey, man, what about that? You supposed to be tending to some sheep, bro. People will literally want you to stay at a lower level because they are afraid of going higher. I've met these kind of people my entire life. My entire life, I've encountered people that have looked at me and like, oh, you from here. You from 7 Mile in Detroit. You supposed to act like this. You from Detroit, you supposed to do this. You black, you supposed to act like this. You supposed to think like this. You supposed to vote like this. You supposed to believe this. You supposed to watch this. You supposed to listen to this. I've had people my whole life like, you don't listen to such and such. Oh, you don't watch this. You don't that. No, why you mad, bro? Why you mad? Because I'm recognizing my moment and you scared. And so the devil will try to use people to belittle you and keep you in a bubble so that you don't burst theirs. But the thing is, when you recognize your moment in time, you don't let nobody else's fear limit you. You don't let anyone else's ignorance limit you. You don't let their glass ceiling stop you from excelling and going forward in life. You don't let their lack of faith stop you from following the Lord in the call that he has on your life. Listen, I'm sorry if God called you to the same thing he called me to, but you won't do it, and I will. I'm not going to stop to make you comfortable. And I'm telling you, I've been in these situations my whole life where I had to decide, am I going to follow God or am I going to allow this person to like me and keep them comfortable so that they won't feel like I'm going too far or thinking too far ahead or being too ambitious. So they'll call you prideful and deceitful because you are not afraid to go and fight the giant. Do y'all feel what I'm saying? Do you feel what I'm saying? Let's get back to David. We're talking about understanding, and being aware of a moment in time. All right. Verse 29, David is like, what have I done now? I was only asking a question. He walked over to some others and asked them the same thing and received the same answer. Then David's question was reported to King Saul, and the king sent for him. I love the fact that David didn't stop asking the question to keep his brother comfortable. David recognized what he was called to do in the moment, and he did that. Now, that means that he has to be sure that God called him to do this, because if not, he would have went out there and got himself killed because he was about to go fight a giant. And so what you have to be aware of and be careful of is the fact that David has spent a lot of time with the Lord and being prepared and groomed for what he was about to do. So don't go out here jumping off of a cliff and saying, I listened to Inspire God's people, and he said, don't be scared to fight the giant. Well, don't be scared if you prepare. There we go. It rhymes, so it works. Don't be scared if you prepare. Don't be scared if you prepare. Ba, 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 ba. Ba, 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 ba. Feel what I'm saying? All right, let's get it going. Verse 32. Don't worry about this Philistine, David told Saul. I'll go fight him. Woo! Is it that easy, David? Listen, there's a certain boldness. There's a certain boldness that comes when you doing something because God told you to do it. You don't have to be afraid. David wasted no time, played no games, called no days off work, said it might be my birthday, but where he at? And the thing about it that I really like about David, and look, Jesus told people before they follow him, count up the cost. Understand what you gaining, understand what you losing. David counted up the cost with his questions. The problem with some of us is we don't ask enough questions before we make a move. It's very important before you do something that you ask as many questions as possible so that you can understand the risk and the reward. David understood that the risk was that he was going to fight a giant, but the reward was like, oh, a new wife and no taxes. And homie thought that was good enough because he walked right in there and said, yep, I'll do it. I'll fight him. I don't know how fine Saul's daughter was. I don't know how high the taxes was, but those seemed to be good enough reasons to convince homie that he was about to go in there and get busy with the giant. I'm just telling y'all what the Bible say. Let's get back to it. So we look at this. 33. Saul said, don't be ridiculous, Saul replied. There's no way you can fight this Philistine and possibly win. You're only a boy, and he's been a man of war since his youth. Time. See how they measure time? We are so addicted to the measurement of time that we think it solidifies everything. Because you're only a boy, and because he's been a man of war since his youth, that time gap means this: you don't stand a chance. But David persisted. I've been taking care of my father's sheep and goats. Ooh, he said, when a lion or bear comes to steal a lamb from the flock, I go after it with a club and rescue the lamb from its mouth. If the animal turns on me, I catch it by the jaw and club it to death. I have done this to both lions and bears, and I'll do it to this pagan Philistine too, for he has defied the armies of the living God. The Lord who rescued me from the claws of the lion and the bear will rescue me from this Philistine. Saul finally consented. All right, go ahead, he said, and may the Lord be with you. Listen, y'all got to understand how David don't play games. My man, this is what I love about it. Remember I told you, we just saw a young boy in the field tending to the sheep, but we didn't think about what he was doing while he was there. David had already been preparing for this moment by recognizing the significance of the other moments. What am I telling you this for? Some of the things that God may have you doing in your life right now may seem insignificant. You may feel like a young boy in the field tending to sheep while everybody else is at war, while your older brothers or your friends or other people are doing all these great things. And one thing I've learned in life is that if you take advantage of the moment, you'll be all right in time. That's why I say don't worry about time. I can remember a time when I didn't have a car in college. And I remember like it used to frustrate me so much. All my roommates had cars and they had really nice cars. I saved some money, got a job, whatever it may be. I had a job already. Excuse me. But I got a new car and it was sweet. And overnight, just like that, I saw the change. And it helped me realize something. Like, oh, you could go from not having a car one day to having a nice car, and now people look at you a certain way, but then you can also lose that car. And so that experience taught me some dynamics on every side. It taught me is like, don't think too low of yourself. And just because everybody else has something today, tomorrow you could surpass them. But also it taught me if you're that person that has more than somebody today, if I'm looking at you like, oh, we the same age and you don't even got what I got. It's like, be careful, Jay. Because something may turn in their life and it didn't happen at the same time, in the same time that it happened for you, but it may be bigger than what you did. It may be more impactful. It may be more sustainable than what you did. So let's not ever think too high or low of ourselves and have that balanced perspective and understanding that different things happen in different times. And when something happens in the world, in like the news today, what we do is we push it on everybody to feel the same. I can't tell you how many times, especially like with these racial issues as a Black person and as a Christian, where people seem like they want you to think a certain way about something. It's like, no, I don't feel how y'all feel just because that's what's reported on the news, that everybody feel that way. Like, that's not what I feel, bro. I don't know what to tell you. Like I'm not a follower, bro. Like, we believers, we are supposed to be the head, not the tail, royal priesthood, all these scriptures, Old Testament, New Testament, we quote them, we sing them in songs, but then we don't understand the moment to use them. We have been living in these moments of time for the last 3 years. There have been so many significant moments of time, and some of us are like punch drunk and we missing it. We missing opportunities. We don't know when to buy something. We don't know when to sell it. Oh, inflation is crazy. The job report. Now it's the dollar. The bank's failing. You don't know where to take your money out, where to put it. You don't know. It's people hit me up like, what this mean? It's like, bro, you gotta understand the moment in time. That's what it means. We can't live blind to the moments. Some people don't realize that. I saw things in the last 3 years as an example. I saw things in the last 3 years where just 2 or 3 years ago, people were saying one thing and they saying something totally different today. I'm like, oh, y'all don't even know what y'all believe. Look at the headlines about anything, right? Look at the headlines about the pandemic and what was being said back then. I always reference this post. I made a post on Facebook like 2 years ago, and it was about the correlation between all of the money printing and inflation. It got like 150,000 shares and people was cussing me out. I'm talking about like cussing me out. And I'm like, bro, now we in inflation and everybody talking about inflation. I'm like, but when I said that, yeah, you was mad at me, fam. You feel me, Aisha? What up, Tasha? She said, y'all better learn these Forex currency exchange markets. It's about understanding the moment in time, man. I tell people all the time, like, talking about markets, I always use the example like real estate. These markets go up and down. You do have to understand, when do I buy? When do I sell? When do I make a move? We did a podcast recently on like, it's not a good time to buy a car in Q1 2023. We enter in Q2, but, I was like, in Q1, don't buy a car. I got to reevaluate it for Q2 and see what's going on. But at the end of the day, there's people, if you're trying to buy a car in February, it's like, bro, you about to pay a lot of money for a car. You're about to overpay for it because you don't understand the significance of the moment. Okay. I didn't forget that we was reading the Bible either, y'all. Let's get back to it. All right. So I like in 37 what David said. The Lord who rescued me from the claws of the lion and the bear will rescue me from this Philistine. Saul finally consented. All right, go ahead, he said, and may the Lord be with you. Verse 38. This story with David is just like, I love his vibe. I love his whole like approach. Verse 38. Then Saul gave David his own armor, a bronze helmet, and a coat of mail. David put it on, strapped a sword over it, and took a step or two to see what it was like, for he had never worn such things before. I can't go in these, he protested to Saul. I'm not used to them. So David took them off again. Verse 40. He picked up 5 smooth stones from a stream and put them in his shepherd's bag. Then, armed only with his shepherd's staff and sling, he started across the valley to fight the Philistine. Now, what I love about David here is that he didn't go dressed the way that Saul would have gone dressed. David said, I'm not used to this. I can't go in somebody else's clothes. Like, that's not me. And what I believe the significance for that, for me, I'll say is like, I'm comfortable in my own skin. A lot of times in life, people will want you to be somebody else. It's like, no, I'm actually me. Like, I'm cool with that. Now, you might have gone and did it that way. You might have only ever seen it done that way, but that ain't what I'm wearing to go fight. And I'm telling you, there are people in life who will limit you because they've never seen it done any other way. But that's what makes you an innovator. That's what makes you a trailblazer. That's what makes you who God called you to be. And I've experienced so many times in my life that because someone else is limited in their capabilities, in their vision, in their creativity, that they want to impress that limited thinking on me and almost question you. Like, bro, you about to go over here with 5 smooth stones, a shepherd's bag, and a staff, in a sling. Like, what are you doing? It's like, oh, you never seen it done like this before. I'm about to show you something new because this is my moment in time to do what God called me to do. And sometimes a moment calls for something new. Some of us are trying to solve the same problems the same way. I said this about church, just generally speaking, coming out of COVID. I was like, there are a lot of churches who shut down during the pandemic and who opened back up and just expected things to be how they were. You cannot shut down any business, organization, any functioning organism for 2 to 3 years and then just turn the lights on and open the door and say, come back. That is not how it works, because people were building new habits during the time. They were thinking of new ideas and had new challenges. And your old way is not going to solve new problems. Now, if you never shut your church down, with some didn't, that may be an advantage because you never had that gap with your people. Like, so that's a whole different approach. But I'm telling you, like, just my belief is like a lot of people shut stuff down. It's like, bro, like the world ain't the same. And I still think people not really all the way getting it. Like, this is a whole different world. Dwayne Wade, Whitley, Ron, this is a different world, fam, than 3 years ago. It's not the same. And so in understanding the moment in time that we're living in, you can make decisions based on the moment that puts you in a position to make better decisions. But if you in 2023 thinking that it's 2019 and waiting for it to get back how it was in 2019, you gonna be waiting forever. You gonna be waiting forever, because it's a new world with new challenges, new problems, new technologies, new fears, new Goliaths, new Davids. There is a bunch of newness going on. But if you don't recognize this moment in time, you might miss it. You might miss you. It might miss you. You might miss it. I could talk. Had to do it. I could talk, people. All right, let's jump back to the Bible. All right, where we at? Where we at? Let's go. Oh, man. Verse 41, Goliath walked out toward David with his shield bearer ahead of him, sneering in contempt at this ruddy-faced boy. Am I a dog, he roared at David, that you come at me with a stick? And he cursed David by the names of his gods. Come over here and I'll give your flesh to the birds and wild animals, Goliath yelled. 45. David replied to the Philistine, you come with me with sword, spear, javelin, but I come to you in the name of the Lord of heaven's armies, the God of the armies of Israel, whom you have defied. Woo! Wait a minute. Got to zoom out. David, look, I want you to understand something. This is what I love about David. He had perspective. Again, with David, what I'm always noticing is that we see one thing, but something else is happening beneath the surface. We see a spear, a slingshot, I'm sorry, in a stick, in a shepherd's bag, and that's what we see. But David wasn't coming in the name of a slingshot. And we always tell the story that he had his 5 smooth stones. He didn't come in the name of the 5 smooth stones. He listed the weapons that Goliath had. And when it came to his weapons, he listed the Lord God. That is who was leading him. And what you got to realize is when God has called you to do something, you can defeat Goliath. If God called you to do it, and if it's the moment in time in which God called you to do it, because what we didn't talk about is that when his brothers first went, it was 40 days between the time that his brothers went out there to first be in the army to where he actually went to check on them that his dad sent them. 40 days. He had to go at his moment. I always tell people direction is far more important than speed. Don't be so caught up in speed and trying to do something quick, right? Time. We're trying to like have a race against time to be the first to do this. Like that's what we always do. We celebrate the first to do this and the first to do that. Well, maybe I'm not the first. Maybe I'm the 15th to do it, but I did it my way. I did it when God called me to do it. You don't have to be the first one to do something for it to be impactful. But you got to understand your moment. A moment in time. Let's get back to it. 46. Today the Lord will conquer you, and I will kill you and cut off your head. And then I will give the dead bodies of your men to the birds and wild animals, and the whole world will know that there is a God in Israel. 47. And everyone assembled here will know that the Lord rescues his people, but not with sword and spear. This is the Lord's battle, and he will give you to us. This is the Lord's battle, and he will give you to us. Some of us are going out and fighting our own battles because we think it's our battle to fight. But the Bible said this, and this was a physical battle. So like, let's look at this in context. This was a physical battle with a physical fight, and things had to be done. But yet David still said it was the Lord's battle. He said it, not me. As Goliath moved closer to attack, David quickly ran out to meet him. Reaching into his shepherd's bag and taking out a stone, he hurled it with his sling and hit the Philistine in the forehead. The stone sank in, and Goliath stumbled and fell face down on the ground. So David triumphed over the Philistine with only a sling and a stone, for he had no sword. Then David ran over and pulled